Welcome to Kings of Kimuras, your one-stop podcast for everything from mats to the stars. Join us as we dive into the heart of Brazilian Jiu Jitsu, explore the thrills of MMA, and groove to the beats of music. But that's not all. We're also venturing into the unknown, discussing aliens and the mysteries of the cosmos. And of course, we'll be shooting the breeze, sharing stories, and laughs along the way. Get ready for a wild ride from a universe of topics. Strap in and prepare to explore the world of BJJ, MMA, music, aliens, and more. Let's roll.
All right, guys, welcome to another episode of Kings of Kimura podcast. We're joined today with Edgar. If you guys don't know who Edgar is, he owns the company Eagrones, and he's going to tell us kind of like a little bit of history about him, but we're also going to get into some deep stuff, maybe, so we're going to have a little fun with it today. I appreciate you joining me. We tried to make this happen like months ago, and it didn't work out, but like here we are today, so... tell us like a little bit about how you got involved with jiu-jitsu.
Yeah, so I started jiu-jitsu back in 2017, July 24th. I know the exact date. I remember like that whole weekend of just being nervous. It was my 27th birthday, and I used to just go to the gym and lift, but it got boring, so I got really overweight, and I always wanted to try jiu-jitsu, and I held it off for a long time. Because I used to interchange jiu-jitsu and Muay Thai, and I had a friend that did both. And one day we were in the parking lot just play fighting, and he spin back and fist me so hard that he just scared the jiu-jitsu out of me. I thought jiu-jitsu was striking. Yeah. And so I was like, yeah, I don't want to do this. Fast forward years later, Joe Rogan, of course. I started hearing about 10th Planet. I started hearing about jiu-jitsu a lot more, and I kept telling my wife, like, man, I want to try this, but I would never do it. And on my birthday, Giselle, my daughter, was like 2 years old. She's starting to walk. I can't crouch over to play with her because, I'm always hurting. I'm overweight. And I said, I'm going to go for it. And I signed up on Friday for the trial class. My birthday was on Friday. I signed up for it. And then on Monday, put on basketball shorts, showed up. And then the rest is history, man. I was hooked.
You never stopped since then, huh?
No, I never stopped. No, and not only did I not stop, right from the get-go, I got so hooked. I was doing like 4 or 5 days in a row. And then I started staying for wrestling. I started staying for advance. I mean, dude, I used to get fevers at night from how much I was training and not resting and just getting beat up. And yeah, man, I was hooked.
Yeah, I've had people ask me, were you, nervous for your first time? And, when I first signed up for a class, I don't remember when it was, but it was 5 years before I actually started training. And I backed out of it because somebody talked me out of it. But when I finally did sign up, I was a little bit older. I was in my mid to late 20s at that point. And I just decided this is what I want to do, and somebody's like, weren't you afraid to go in there? I'm like, no, because I'd made that decision at that point. This is what I want. And it was a little bit easier. I'm not saying that there weren't some nerves or butterflies, but it wasn't to the point where I'm like, oh, I'm not going to go to do this. And then once you do it once, you're like, oh, that's not really that bad, And I repeatedly would show up,
Yeah, the years leading up to it were frightening, right? All the times that I would say, oh, I want to try this, and I wouldn't do it. But when I signed up for the class and I actually committed to going, I went with the mentality, that day of class, saying it's going to be hard. I'm going to get beat up. But I got to try this. I got to try something new. And I walked in, and my coach at the time, Brandon, that gym did a really good job of who they placed at the door to welcome students in, because he made me feel welcome, walked us through the warm-ups, and I'm out of breath and everything. But, man, it was I went with the intention of doing it for a long time. I knew it was going to be hard, and I just committed to it, and it doesn't get easier. You just get better with time. And as of now, it's one of my non-negotiables, man. I'll do this forever.
Yeah, I started a new class here in our Plano spot. It's a 6 o'clock. It's just an intro to jiu-jitsu. And it's more of like a way for me to have a one-on-one with a first-time person or maybe somebody that's only been training for a little bit to like make it more of like a, like a friendly type of atmosphere as opposed to, you do a group class as a first-time student, it can be like overwhelming because there's people doing warm-ups and you have no idea what you're doing. You're looking around to like, no, you go first because you're not sure what to do. So I put that class in play because I can like, you do forming with people, right? Where you're like, why'd you get into jiu-jitsu? Oh, you got into it to learn self-defense. Okay, yeah, this is a instance that I had to use self-defense, or this is another student that had that same kind of, reason for starting jiu-jitsu. And you can kind of break down a lot of the movements and make it to where it's really easy to pick the stuff up as opposed to like, just do a hip escape as a first-time person. You're like, what am I even doing? Like most people can't do that. So I feel like making it a friendly environment is like super key to somebody wanting to come back,
Yeah, it's good you have that. I think as we get older, we forget how to use our bodies.
Yeah.
I remember it took me a long time to just figure out how to properly do a Granby or a shrimp or a proper forward roll because you're sitting around all day, especially if you have a sedentary, or how do you say it? Sedentary lifestyle, where you're just sitting in front of a computer all day. And you literally forget how to move, how to crouch over. So yeah, I think it's really cool that you have that.
I do remember my first time forward rolling. I don't think you ever forget this because I face planted. I was like one of those like trying to look, and I did it in front of the entire class, and like my neck. And the coach just was like, "Yeah, don't do that." Like, okay, yeah, I kind of figured that out when my neck hurts. But I try to be very detailed in when I'm like explaining to somebody how to do something because of all of like the mistakes or injuries that I've had throughout the years. So it makes it a little bit easier, I think, like having all those mistakes to teach people how to do things correctly.
I used to roll off the sides, dude. Instead of going down a straight line, I'd roll and then I'd be in the next line over. And when you go backwards, I don't know if other people still get this, but I still get dizzy when I do forward rolls and backward rolls.
I wonder if that's because you're holding your breath, though. If you, like, as you're rolling, if you blow out, that's something that I kind of like picked up training with J-Flow not too long ago. Is like, it's like weightlifting or anything, right? Then when you hold your breath, that's when guys end up like passing out and stuff and getting dizzy. But if you're like exhaling as you throw or exhaling as you roll or exhaling as you're being thrown, you're more likely to like not be tensed up,
Yeah, I didn't even know that. I didn't even know you could do. Well,
yeah.
I didn't even think about like the breathing aspect of it. Which again, man, there's just so much to jiu-jitsu. You think you're getting better, and then you learn something completely new, and you're like, I've been doing it wrong this entire time.
Yeah, there's I've had stuff like that for sure too. Or it'll be like you go to a seminar or something, you pick up like one little detail, like, man, I've done this move my whole life, and now this guy's changed the way that I think about things.
Yeah, definitely.
So how did you get involved with the company Eagrones? Like, obviously, you started training jiu-jitsu. And I assume you like saw a need for like good quality gear, right?
Yeah. So my background is in art and graffiti, and when I was in high school, I wanted to start a t-shirt company. Like I was a big fan of Mark Echo, South Pole, like a bunch of these graffiti brands. And when I graduated high school, I went to graphic design school for a little bit, and then was pretty much only able to do it for 6 months because I couldn't afford to stay in the program. And I immediately had to start working. So I kind of just, pushed it off to the side, but like art never left me. And when I started doing jiu-jitsu, I was buying a bunch of rash guards with art that I liked. But the quality wasn't all that great. And then one day, one of the owners of the jiu-jitsu academy that I was training at was there, and at the end of the class, he kind of gave a speech to the entire class, essentially speaking about, to if you have a goal in life or if you have something you want to accomplish, like just go for it. Don't just clock in 9 to 5. Like figure out what you want to do and pursue it. And then one of the examples that he gave was actually the brand Newaza and Failings. And both of those brands come from the school that I come from.
Okay.
And so for me, I don't know, something like a light bulb just clicked, like, well, if they came from here, so can I. I can do something too. And my intention was just to create a rash guard for myself with art that I wanted to make on a rash guard that felt good for me.
Yeah.
Like, you know, and you the bug hits you and you're like, oh, I want to start a brand. I want to go into retail. And, but my trajectory took me differently. And I did some releases, but I started getting asked more for design work from gym owners. And because of my background in project management, I was able to just get shit done really quickly. I guess a lot of people were dropping the ball in that, and I was able to get shit done. And one referral from one academy led to another, and my whole business pivoted and shifted over to where now I only focus on wholesale.
Yeah, that's cool, man. Yeah, I think it's always inspirational to see somebody like follow their dreams. You know, like speaking from experience here of like somebody that had a normal 9-to-5 job and then jumped into like doing what I love. What do you think like sets your product apart from a lot of these other companies?
Yeah, I think, well, our art is definitely, I started saying we a lot lately, and it feels weird for me because for a long time it was just me operating by myself. But I've recently brought in people to help me, whether it be with art, whether it be with operations. I often joke when people say like, you know, what's your role at Eagrones? I'm like, oh, I'm the owner, founder, designer, janitor. Like I do everything. But I brought some people in to help me, and we're just a get shit done company. So we've really established ourselves and have gotten the reputation of when somebody needs something urgent for a competition, or you know, like their school has an event coming up, as long as it's within a reasonable timeline, they can usually count on us to get it done. You know, I'll be perfectly honest with you. Like the rash guards that we make, they're of high quality, but they're not custom made like fabrics or anything like that. They're fabrics that you can get anywhere else. It's just that we've taken the time to source good materials, work with good manufacturers, and really dial in our design process so that we can be very efficient and, you know, turn projects around really quickly and help people boost their revenue. Because a lot of time, these are huge investments that academy owners are making. Yeah. And for people to just drag along, take their time to give them the designs, bring the artwork or bring the actual product, man, it just kills. Yeah.
Do you, you know, the first time I ever saw your rash guard was Tony Oviedo had made one, and I had done like a pre-order with him. And I just felt like the difference of the quality of the rash guard is like a much softer material. Did you ever like travel to your source to like look at their products, or you just everything is like through communication online?
Yeah, so far it's all been online. I have plans to travel out there pretty soon. One of my friends and I want to make a trip. There's this thing called, I think, the Canton Fair. Okay. And you're able to go and you're able to meet a lot of manufacturers. And so I'd love to like go out and do that. Not just, you know, not just overseas in China, but I want to go to Vietnam. I want to go to what's that? Portugal. There's a lot of good fabrics that come from there. Yeah. But as of right now, man, it was a ton of trial and error. I had a lot of Pakistan manufacturers reach out. I tested a bunch of them. I had manufacturers from everywhere reach out. I had American-made manufacturers reach out. And ultimately, I ended up finding a good partnership with the factory that I use. I have a couple others that, you know, are there as backup, but it's all been online communication.
That's cool. Can you talk about like what the blend of the fabric is that you use, or is that like proprietary type of information?
No, so I don't know the specifics. Like the blends are usually anywhere from like an 83 polyester, 13 spandex. That's usually like the stuff that you see. And it'll interchange. It'll be like 82, 18, 87, 13. And what I've noticed the difference is just how thick or how thin the fabric actually is. Okay. I know that my fabrics come from Italy, as well as some of the bigger brands, because we go through the same source. It's just that we all have a different way of working. The way I like to explain it, you know, when I speak to clients, because, you know, oftentimes they'll bring up like, well, you know, your brand and another brand, the fabric's the same. And it's like, you know, a lot of us will source from the same material. Yeah. Sharing secret information here. we'll source from the same place, but it's ultimately like, who do you want to partner with? You know, who are you going to trust to deliver on your project?
Yeah.
And so that's where we really stick out. And a lot of that also has to do with the fact that we wanted to just do wholesale. If I was going to stick to retail, I would really kind of pause everything and really start sourcing different fabrics, different cuts, you know, like, but for wholesale, unfortunately, it doesn't work. Like, I want to create a good quality product at a good price point and be able to deliver it every single time.
You ever had like any horror stories of like dealing with a customer? Obviously, you don't have to like give any names here, but like, I think people sometimes, you know, they forget of like how difficult it can be as a independent business owner, and like, you know, the stuff that you have to deal with, and in order to like make a customer happy, or maybe even like completely do away with a customer, you know?
Yeah, I have had those situations. I think a lot of that happened at the beginning when I didn't have a process, you know, written down and established, and I would essentially just be a yes man. Like, hey, can you do this design? Yes. Can you do it for this much? Yes. You know, you don't. 'Cause I struggled a lot with imposter syndrome when I first started. You know, I was like, I'm a white belt doing rash guards for all these black belts. I felt like I had to say yes to everybody about everything. And sometimes some projects worked out great. Some projects were just a nightmare, where it's revision after revision after revision. And sometimes we'd go through all this work, and then they'd change the design altogether.
Yeah.
And I didn't know how to defend myself against that. You know, I didn't have, I don't like doing contracts or anything like that, but I didn't have anything set in place where I demonstrated, this is how my process works.
Yeah.
This is what we're going to do along the way to make sure you get what you want, but also so we can do it in a timely fashion. And like now, you know, we've been doing this for 6 years, and I don't really deal with that so much. My struggle now is a little bit different, is how to keep revenue coming into the business as projects go along.
Okay.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, I've definitely like dealt with a lot of different manufacturers throughout the years, and you're very easy to deal with. Like when we first did our first deal, it was like you sent me an email, and it was like, this is how much everything costs. This is where you put your amounts of, you know, clothing that you're getting. This is the time, the turnaround time. And I've dealt with some people where they're like, yeah, just shoot me a text of like your sizes, and then I'll give you the cost. And I'm like, okay, well, how long is it like going to be? And like, I don't know, 8 weeks or something, you know, like, but it's always nice to work with somebody that can actually, like you said, get stuff done and get it done quick with a good turnaround. Where do you see yourself in like 3 to 5 years as the business grows?
Yeah, we, so like I said, I just started bringing some people aboard to help me. I have an operations guy that's helping me on the back end, take care of outgoing orders, tracking, onboarding new clients. I have a few designers that I'm starting to bring on to help me with design work. Because, you know, I got to the point where I can't do everything myself anymore. I also have a day job. But in the future, as, you know, I potentially do this full time, we're currently building out a print shop. And so my dream, like my goal would be to own just a full-on shop where we do design, we could do in-house manufacturing, we could do screen printing, like everything for streetwear, not just jiu-jitsu. And even like eventually later on other sports like CrossFit, gyms, stuff like that. But I'd like to be the manufacturer. And so there are other brands that we work with that we'll white label for. And so it's not just academies, and like I said, we don't really do retail. We're just a manufacturing service and wholesale. So there's other big brands that we like to partner up with and, you know, print their stuff.
Yeah, that's cool, man. So I know like as brands grow, and I think about like Sugar Roll is probably like one of the biggest brands in jiu-jitsu. But as brands grow, there's people that like copy what that brand is doing, whether that's like a straight up copy where they're selling fake stuff, or like they take your design and they like tweak it slightly, which I've seen. I forget what the company was, but when I used to work with War Tribe, there was somebody, one of these like Pakistan gi manufacturers that were like taking the same designs that we had on the gis and like tweaking one little thing, but it was like almost identical, and they were releasing them like the same time we were releasing. So come to find out, it was like out of the same manufacturer. You know, that's like they had somebody in the inside. But have you had to deal with anything like that?
So I've seen my designs reposted by other manufacturers with a different logo on there. That's kind of the wild west of it, right? Because if you're dealing with the overseas manufacturer, you don't essentially have any rights. They can steal your stuff and resell it. And I mean, are you going to sue someone in Pakistan?
No.
You
don't even know what the law is as far as like
neither,
that.
And neither do I. Like, I don't know how that works. But I know there's other big brands that deal with that a lot, where they have older manufacturers that are pretty much just stole all their files, and they'll just rebrand it.
Yeah,
so
that sucks.
Man, it does suck.
Yeah.
I don't see it as much. Like for academy owners who use our services, it's not really a big concern for them because we're doing gym specific stuff.
Sure, but if you're doing retail, that's where it becomes a problem.
And the way we do it is we set up our files a specific way so they can't really be reproduced.
Okay.
For example, if I separate layers, again I'm giving out trade secrets. If I separate layers, a manufacturer could easily remove your logo.
Yeah.
Just slap something else. But we set it up to where you can't really remove Tony's logo and put something else on top of it. It would be noticeable. It wouldn't look good.
Yeah.
So we have a certain way of how we deal with stuff, but we also have trust with our manufacturer, with how we work. Like we have our deals established, right?
Yeah.
That's not to say, I don't know, in the future anything could happen.
Sure.
But I have seen a lot of other companies get ripped off.
Yeah, you're saying you still have that day job, and we talked about this the other day. I feel like for me, things like really popped off whenever I like quit the day job and I had to struggle a little bit. And I think of like somebody else that I know that was in that situation, a guy named Blaine Barlow who runs Control Industries. He was like, he worked at a water treatment plant and he was kind of doing it like on the side. He would do like one-off productions of gis and like everything was pre-sale, and he was really focused more on the retail side of things. And then it got to the point where he got so busy that he had to like quit the job or quit the jiu-jitsu thing. And now he does it full time. I haven't talked to him in years, but like he's definitely like blown up, pretty successful, and like he's another guy like you that like really focuses on the details of the product. And I think if more companies did that and like focus less on like, trying to maximize profits about, making cheap stuff and selling it for, 10-time markup, that people will be more happy with their product. I have some gear that I bought as a beginner and I spent a little bit more money on it. And 15 years later, I still have it. I can't fit it anymore because I'm fatter, but there's other people still wearing it, So, yeah.
You got fatter doing jiu-jitsu longer?
I did, yeah. I mean, I would say somewhat fatter, but definitely a lot more muscle. I look at some photos of myself back in the day, and my neck was so small, and now my neck is like the same size as my head. And that just kind of happens to you from training, and you're, wrestlers the same way, right? You get that like super neck strength. So that's cool, man. You're like, really expanding that business. And is there anything that you look to do, that, let's say of like somewhere you want to go with this? Or you looking to like maybe manufacture t-shirts and be in, retail stores, or, cause you said you are focused on primarily the wholesale, but like the t-shirt thing is going to be a little bit different, right?
No. I'm like I said, I want to be a wholesale manufacturer for academies, for gyms and stuff like that. Like I don't necessarily want to get into retail. So even the t-shirt part is going to be all wholesale. We occasionally will do some designs. Or I have some cool artwork that I want to keep for myself, and I'll do a shirt. But I don't really have intentions of creating an Eagrones brand that's in retail stores or anything like that. Neither with the t-shirts, nor with the jiu-jitsu stuff. Sometimes I just go back to the beginning, man. Like I just wanted to make cool shit for myself and my friends. Yeah. And my friends want to purchase it and it supports me, and that's great. But my focus is helping other academies boost their revenue, like make wholesale stuff for them and be able to provide those full services. Because for years, that's the one thing that I would get asked for a lot is, hey, when are you going to do t-shirts and hoodies and hats? Well, let us know, because we like the way you operate with the NoGi stuff. We want to do all the other stuff too. Yeah. And ultimately, if I want to leave my day job, I have to be able to, support my family, and
Sure.
offering a full service like that might be a way that's going to help me.
Yeah. So you started in California, right? Is that where you grew up? Is like out in California?
Yeah, born and raised Southern California.
Yeah. What brought you guys to Texas?
Oh man, the world, dude.
Yeah.
Yeah, all the lockdowns, just seeing how the world was turning.
Uh-huh.
So I was born in Pomona, raised in Paris, so Inland Empire, and I grew up there. And where we're from, like it's all good, man. Life is still pretty cool, even with all the craziness you hear. It's like Southern California is still pretty awesome, but it's just really expensive. And so around 2000, Giselle, my daughter, was born in 2015. Like in 2016, 17, my boss at my day job, they had a board meeting, and after that we all had dinner, and they jokingly said, "Hey Edgar, what do you think about Texas?" And I'm like, "What do you mean?" He's like, "Well, we want to expand markets, and we think you're a good fit." And I'm just a tech service guy. Like, I'm not a sales rep or anything. I was like, why would I go to Texas?
Yeah.
I had also just gotten an apartment in Costa Mesa, just like right by the beach, dude. Like, I was like, I'm not leaving California.
Uh-huh.
Fast forward years later, I have 2 kids now. I don't live by the beach anymore, and reality hits, and you start noticing things. And my cousins and I used to joke about moving to Texas. This is like 2008, 2019. Well, in 2020, when everything shut down, I still had to travel towards the end of the year, and one of those trips was to Texas. And we came out, I did a lot of work in East Texas, and my colleague at the time told me to visit North Texas at the end, in Melissa. And so I did that, and when I did the drive on the 75 past Richardson, like just coming all the way up, I just really liked this area, and I reached out to her, and I was like, "Hey, how much help do you need out here?" And she's like, "Why, do you want to move here?" And I was like, I'll consider it.
Yeah.
So I called my wife. I told her, like, "Hey, we've been talking about Texas. California's a little too expensive now. We like to start our life, and we like to start fresh too.
Yeah.
What do you think about going out there?" And she said, "Yeah." We flew out. We saw areas in Fort Worth, Austin, the Dallas area, and then ultimately we ended up picking North Texas. And man, we loved it, dude. We've been here almost 4 years now.
What's been the biggest challenge, like, since moving here? Do you feel like obviously the weather is completely different, and I think sometimes people, they move to North Texas and they're not used to like the storms that come through here, that might be like, I would think somebody moving here would be like, man, the storms, we didn't anticipate like how crazy they can be. Is there anything you can think that's like, I didn't consider this when I moved here?
Tornado warnings are the only thing that ever make me say, like, we're moving back. Like, and we'd say it jokingly. I mean, it's terrifying at the moment. You know what I mean? You're hearing the alarms and you're hunkered down because we have earthquakes in California, but I guess I'm just used to them. Like, earthquakes don't really scare me, but tornado warnings, man, it's terrifying. And so we'll often say, like, man, why did we do this? But other than that, we're used to the weather. It doesn't bother us anymore. It's just the food and our family.
Okay. This podcast like covers a lot of different topics, and one that we have in our promo that we really haven't talked too much about is aliens. And I always get people asking me, like, when are you guys going to talk about aliens? So this is it right here.
No pressure.
Yeah. I think that, my personal opinion is there's got to be something more to the universe than just us. I find it hard to believe that out of all the planets that exist, that there's only one that has any kind of life on it, and whether that's like interdimensional, which seems to be like more of a common theme, when you hear guys that are like string theory type guys talk, but who knows really, and the one that you hear about most recently is like these Tic Tacs that are in California, typically like around San Diego area. But they're like, it seems to me like they're drawing some type of energy source or something from the water, and it could be even like it's one of the U.S. military's, if you think about like, why is it always appearing by military bases, maybe they're like using it to test out like how good is the radar system on some of these more modern jets. And how long has it been happening? Really, we don't really even know any information about it. You ever had any type of experience or anything?
Like, have I ever seen anything?
You haven't seen anything at all?
Yeah, dude. It's always weird talking about this, right? Because you try not to sound like a psycho.
Mm-hmm.
But so when I used to live in Southern California, I used to commute to LA, and there was an incident where it's, if you're from Southern California, the 60 freeway to LA, and I'm near Ontario around Chino Hills, and I don't know if there's a military base around there. Mm-hmm. There's March Air Force Base in Moreno Valley, which is by where I used to live. I never saw anything there, but this one time, like early in the morning, I'm going to work, and we're in traffic, and I'm driving westbound towards LA, and I look up, and there's a ship. There's a weird. I don't know what they're called. I've seen like those flat like spy like really fast military ships that we have.
Yeah.
You know which ones I'm talking about?
Yeah, like a B whatever, like the stealth bomber type thing, right?
So I thought it was something like that, right? Mm-hmm. And I'm looking up, but it's by itself, and it's flying, but it's maneuvering weirdly. Like it's not just churning, like it's just making like weird cuts, like. Mm-hmm. And I'm looking at it and I'm like, what the hell? And then 2 fighter jets pull up, mm-hmm. and they start following it around. And I'm driving and I'm looking around like nobody's like paying attention. Like nobody's looking. Does anybody else see this? Like I'm looking up at this and I'm seeing something. And I go under the bridge or whatever, and I look up and I get to where it's behind me somewhere. I can't see it no more. Mm-hmm. And what I always tell my wife that I find weird is I already had an iPhone at that time. Mm-hmm. I don't know why it never occurred to me to like pull out my phone and record it, like to pull over and record, and like, because now it's just a story in my head, right?
Sure.
That, like it's something that I know I saw, but like how do you explain it? And the reason I think it's weird that it didn't occur to me to pull out my phone is because you think about like all the shaky footage, like all the shaky cam. Like how come we have all these phones and nobody has like footage on their phone. Nobody has good footage. Well, I also saw something and I didn't get footage. Mm-hmm. Like it didn't occur to me. And this is just a weird me now to saying. It's like I wonder if there's something interdimensional or something mysterious that happens that in your mind blocks you from wanting to record them. Yeah. Does that make sense?
No, I completely understand that. I've always wondered too, like, why is nobody ever recording this stuff? But me personally, I've never seen anything, but I've I would go to the Texas beach as a kid and it's completely black out there. You get out at nighttime and like you can see stars forever. And I never saw anything, but like you would, your mind would like play tricks on you. Like, was that star moving? But I had, my stepdad, he works on airplanes. And when we would go to the beach at nighttime, he would just like sit out there for several hours. And he's like, yeah, I'm looking to see if I can see anything. He's like, because he had been in the aerospace industry his entire life, he was like, yeah, I see stuff all the time, whether it's like on radar or like physically seeing it with my eyes, but it definitely makes me wonder, like, why is this stuff continually popping up around different military bases? I tend to lean on like it's either our own from like some type of wreckage that's left behind that's been reverse engineered, which we know that has actually been done because of Bob Lazar. But then there's also the aspect of like, are we traveling from the future back to a current time? I think that's a real thing as well. Or is it like another dimension where we're, like you think of like the Matrix, right? Where there's like every possible outcome is like happening at the same
like
time.
The multiverse.
Exactly. Yeah. Is it something like that? I have no idea, and I'll probably never know. And I'm not smart enough to like do the research myself. So it's going to be to what I see online or what I find on YouTube is like where I get my expert knowledge from.
Yeah. We also never look up at the sky. Yeah. Like, have you ever noticed that? Like, nobody really ever just stops and looks up. Right? Yeah. Have you ever seen those videos of like how many airplanes are in the sky all at the same time?
Yeah.
But if But at every minute, like just about every moment when you look up, there's no planes up there.
Yeah.
But I bet if you stared at the sky all day, you'd catch a bunch of planes. And we just never do that. I was telling my wife about that. About like, it's crazy how we just like, people have UFO theories, but we never look up.
Yeah, no most people don't. Yeah, during COVID, I downloaded this app, and I still have it today. It like tracks every plane that's in the sky at the same time, whether it's a helicopter or a plane or whatever.
I thought you were going to say UFO tracker.
No, I wish. But it'll even track military, but it won't show you where they're from. Some of them will show you like where all the plane has been. And when you look and like you just go over DFW at any given moment, even like just zoomed in over DFW, not over the whole nation. There's so many planes in the air at one time. I would say like any given moment, there's probably 1,000 to 1,500 planes, planes and helicopters, you know, and that ranges from anywhere from like airliners to commercial planes to, you know, small individual planes. And if you live anywhere like closer towards a city, like I know where I live, the route to DFW Love Field is over me. And then the route coming from Addison, that small airport, is over me. So like I'm continuously seeing planes overhead, but you know, I live so close to the city that it's like never really that dark for me to see anything more than like an airplane and maybe like the brightest star in the sky.
Yeah, that's crazy, man. When you think about how many planes are up there at the same time, and then I travel for work a lot, so I constantly think about that stuff.
Yeah.
Going back to the alien stuff though, it's kind of like I find it a little crazy and reassuring in a weird way, where you hear about like all these UFOs near like nuclear bases, or like their weapon systems turn off, you know, and because like are they like, if it's real, are there really beings up there that are keeping us from like obliterating ourselves?
I don't know, man. I mean, it could, like I said, it could be us testing out this technology, you know, but I've also heard in Russia, they had like a similar instance where there was a potential like nuclear launch, and it was like completely shut down by one of these crafts, you know. I think the most recent like event where a lot of people saw something is that Brazil event. I think it's like Virginia or something like that, where there was like a whole school of elementary kids saw some kind of being and saw a spacecraft land. And there was even a police officer that made contact with the being and like died from some type of bacterial infection.
Yeah, it was like a tall, lanky being, something like that. Yeah.
And that, you can watch that documentary. I forget what it's called, but I bought it on, you know, any stuff like that comes out, I buy it and I watch it. It's a pretty interesting documentary because they go and talk to all these people. And now all these people are like in their, you know, that was like 15 years, 20 years later or something like that.
Yeah, there's some like sisters or something, right, that saw that being and supposedly communicated with them.
Yeah.
And yeah, I've heard about that.
There was another one in Australia where it was an entire playground of kids at a school, and they saw it land, and like they interviewed the teachers, they interviewed the kids. Everybody had the same experience, and it kind of like, I wonder, like sometimes are these things around us, and there's some type of like a cloaking device, you know, like you look out today and it's a cloudy day, like what are the chances that they like can make their ship look like a cloud? You know, have you ever? There's this guy on YouTube. He's on Instagram too. His handle is like Mr. MBB83, and he's out in, I want to say he's in Arizona or New Mexico, but he does this thing where people send in like photos of clouds that look weird. You know, it'll be like a triangle in the cloud, and he's like, I don't know what it is, but this is, you know, what's going on. So, but he does a lot of like weird video stuff, but he'll like invert the photo even to like another color so you can see the outline, but he doesn't do anything to like doctor the photo.
Gotcha.
You know, but he has some really cool videos, and whenever I watch it, sometimes I'm like, man, that's crazy that this is like above and you don't even look.
Well, I mean, you'd have to imagine if there are beings that are that intelligent, or I mean, again, and even if it's just our technology that's just way more advanced, I'm sure they can cloak themselves.
Yeah.
Right? Like, I'm sure. I always wondered, like, when you do, so like when you see cave drawings and there's like weird creatures, they obviously saw something to for them to be able to draw that, right? And just like when we see movies, when we make futuristic movies and where we make characters, like what inspires that? Like what visions or like what did somebody see that inspired that?
Yeah.
I always feel like we're able to create something based on something we already saw, whether it's just passed on genetically or an experience. And so in movies, when we make these futuristic crafts or in comic books where we see these crafts that like they're cloaking themselves, like where did that idea originally come from?
Yeah, I have a theory on that with the movies and stuff. I feel like, the CIA has been involved in it for years with like, kind of like indoctrinating people to make them more comfortable of like accepting something that may happen. And I feel like a lot of these movies that we have about aliens and extraterrestrials are like preparing us to, because when all of that information was released not too long ago, people were like, yeah, I don't care. Like, yeah, so what? Aliens are real, but if you release that information in 1950, I think people are like freaked out, to the point of like they're going in bunkers. But now it's like they've kind of prepared us so much. It's, very similar to like, gore and stuff with the movies and, people okay with killing people and video games, like it's getting people used to seeing something, so there's a less likelihood of them freaking out. And I think that a lot of Hollywood is backed by government to make things okay for people,
I agree with you, man. I think the same. But that makes you, it's kind of concerning of all the stuff they're showing right now specifically. Sure. I mean, like what are they trying to do? Like with that movie Leave the World Behind, Civil War, all those movies coming out around the same time. Yeah. Man, it's concerning, dude. I do feel like they're prepping people for something.
Yeah, I mean, they've got to definitely be. And you hear somebody like Tom DeLonge, who, I don't want to be like, he's the guy we got to listen to. But you hear some of the stuff that he says, and it's like, this guy is nuts. And then, like, some of it comes true, And so I don't really know, like, how much to believe. And then there's guys like... I can't think of the guy's name. He's a doctor. He's been on like Jeremy Corbell's podcast and stuff before. But
Greer?
Yeah, Greer. Not David Greer, something Greer. But he's the one that's like, apparently he's very well connected with a lot of these groups that study extraterrestrial. And I've heard that he has some kind of information that if the government comes after him, that stuff is released.
I was just gonna say that to you. Yeah, where he has a kill switch or something like that. Like if something happens to him, all these classified files just go out. Yeah. Yeah, it's Dr. Greer. I don't know his first name, but it's Dr. Greer. I'm fascinated by the guest that Sean Ryan has. So Sean Ryan, like he'll have military guys come in and they'll talk about encounters that they've had, or there was a guy who. Him and his father encountered something.
Yeah, the Special Forces guy. He was not only Special Forces, he was Delta Force, which is like the elite of the elite.
Yeah. Yeah, he's the one with the father, right? Yeah. Where they saw something and then they essentially made him not talk to each other anymore. Yeah, they were trying to kill him or something.
It was some type of device. So they invited, his father was like a contractor where they would do work for the military. And they asked him to come in and build a shooting range indoors. And when they walked past this certain room, there was some type of big obelisk, and the guy was like manipulating it with his hands. We're talking like 40 foot long, 8 foot tall, 8 foot wide, something one person can't move. And they went and they looked at the shooting thing, and when they came back, the room was completely empty. And they asked them to sign a NDA, and they kind of like balked at it and didn't sign it. And the next day they show up to their shop, and all their equipment is gone. All their bank accounts are cleaned out. Like everything is gone. His dad basically says, like, don't ever talk to me again. I think something happened, obviously, with the dad where he's like, if you talk to your son, we're going to kill him. Is kind of what it seemed like, But he didn't have that information. And then the same guy that he saw there tried to kill him off of a jumping out of an airplane. And he saw that guy like a few times. His dad died. The guy showed up at his house. And, for sure there's like there's people like that, man. And I've heard a lot about those Delta Force guys that they're typically like sociopaths. You know, they're looking for like guys that are loners, that are okay with killing somebody, even killing like their best friend or their family. You know, and those type of guys are the ones that they put in those positions because they know they're not going to talk to anybody. You know.
Yeah, that's insane. There was that other guy that I don't know if he was a Marine or he was another SEAL, and they were in in one of the rainforests in Ethiopia, where he talks about how him and his platoon essentially came across some type of containers, and they were essentially like feeding it to a ship.
Yeah.
Did you hear that one?
Yeah, but it was like people, right?
Yeah, like there was
like
people in the
people.
containers.
Yeah.
It was like all these kidnapping cases, and they were putting them in containers, but it sounded like they were feeding it to a ship.
Yeah. Some type of like, you know, one of those triangular type ships is what it kind of just.
And it would just take off into the ocean.
Yeah.
That's crazy, man.
There's got to be stuff out there that we fully don't understand, you know, and what is like, why are they keeping people out of Antarctica? You know, I mean, I'm not like, I'm going to go vacation to Antarctica, but if you look at like any map, it's like really not, there's no detailed information. You can't physically go there as a person. You have to be, you know, on some type of work crew to be able to get there. So like, what is going on down there? You know, why is there a giant research group in Antarctica for, first of all? And my understanding, it's like a complete village, you know?
Yeah.
So what is going on down there?
Probably a bunker, dude. At the end of the world for all the elites.
Yeah, could be. Or it could be they're unearthing some ancient technology down there and they don't want anybody to see it. Or
it could be a giant ice wall blocking us from falling over the earth.
It could be. We'll never know because I'm not going to make it down there. You know?
Neither am I. I have no interest.
You know, there's like some old stuff of like there's some colonel that was in the military that was in charge of some expedition to go to Antarctica, and we're talking like the 1940s or 50s. And he went down there and he wrote about like seeing tropical forest and stuff, you know. But I don't, you know, again, there's no like photographs or videos to prove that. But this guy was a colonel in the United States military. And I can't remember what his name is, but he was the first guy to do like an expedition down there to Antarctica.
Yeah. Dude, I used to be very close-minded about all this stuff. Like I used to think like, oh, this is dumb. Like why would people entertain this? Why do people even care? And this is even like before my so-called encounter, right? Which, for all I mean, it could have been a military ship.
Yeah.
But I have an uncle, and he's Christian. Like he's of the belief, like from Nicaragua. Dude's never been like, he's never been crazy or like he's never had outlandish thoughts. Just a traditional, typical man, like you know, and fully believes in the Bible and whatnot. And one day I jokingly, like now as an adult, like I jokingly to my tío say like, yeah, tío, can you believe like people believe the earth is flat? And I shit you not. He looked at me straight in the face and he says, the earth is flat. And I can prove it to you. And I'm like, oh shit, wait, what? And that was one encounter. Another encounter, same uncle, again, like he's not a conspiracy theory. He's not like that type of like a goofy dude or anything. And I asked him, like, we were talking about, there was a whole flat earth thing, and then there was UFOs things. And then in one conversation, I don't remember what he was telling me, but he was saying something about like a reunion, like, or some type of medical conference where they were talking about dinosaurs. And there was a guy from Kenya, like from deep in the jungle, like he's there on this conference, and he's talking about dinosaurs as if like, no, they're still there. They're all hidden, like they're like, dinosaurs aren't extinct. Yeah. But like he went in onto this tangent, and he didn't want to like discuss too much detail because I could tell like he was gonna think he knew I was gonna think he was crazy. But that to me like kind of made me start like just questioning, like wondering stuff like, well, then I wonder like if he thinks if this guy, one of the most logical people that I know, because again he's not an illogical person. If he believes this stuff, then it piqued my interest to start looking into things. I don't believe the earth is flat. But I think there's definitely crazy stuff out there.
I think it's good to question stuff. You know, it doesn't mean that it like you believe that it's real, but like believing something wholeheartedly and not having evidence of it either way is nuts to me. You know, like I'd rather be more open-minded about it and like, yeah, this could be a possibility. You know, there's definitely some stuff out there that's pretty crazy that I don't believe in, but at the same time, I think it's good to like question things, you know, and put things in perspective of like, you can't always believe everything that's told to you. You know, there may be a reason why somebody's telling you this. They don't want you to look into it or something, you know?
Yeah. Some people just go overboard, man. Some feel like that's all they talk about, all they dive into.
Yeah.
And I think it's cool to escape for a little bit and kind of hear these crazy thoughts. Like while I'm working, you know, listening to a podcast and I'm hearing guys talk about this stuff, and it kind of sparks your interest to start looking into it. Mm-hmm. But I don't really dive too deep into like, are aliens real, or is the Earth flat? You know, are we being teleported, or you know, like I don't. It's a fun theory to have.
There was a lady that Joe Rogan had on his podcast, and I can't remember what her name is, but her background was a religious scholar, and I read her book too. She got connected with some people who were in this like Space Force program that she couldn't use their name because they were like CIA and stuff, and she called one of them Tyler Durden, who's like the character from Fight Club. Yeah. But this guy had like access to a lot of stuff that a normal person wouldn't have access to because he was a U.S. agent. And she would talk about how they had like different technology that they were reverse engineering. And at one point she talked about how, I guess it was like in the 80s and 90s, they had these programs in public school where they would test kids. And I do remember like some of these programs, like they would have advanced kids. So if you were advanced, you got put in this program. And then they would test those kids, and whoever was the advanced ones out of that, they would move them to the next program. And basically they were like trying to find children and teens that were susceptible to some type of like potential above normal brain activity. And they would kind of groom them to put them into these programs of, you know, working on these extraterrestrial type projects. And that was this guy, Tyler. He was one of those guys. But she met 3 or 4 people during her time writing this book. And one of the times they used her to get access to the Vatican's records. Because she was a religious scholar, she had access to this room where like guys like Plato and Aristotle studied in and had books in. But they needed to go there to look at some records that the Vatican had on potential extraterrestrial. It was, you know, they considered them like, you know, angelic beings or whatever, but they were going there with the intent of like looking at this like, hey, this could be an extraterrestrial incident. And it was really neat. Like I can't remember what the name of the book is, but man, it was strange to like know that this is going on and that it's funded by the government. And it's happening in front of us, and nobody even has any idea.
Yeah, well, that I really believe happens. Yeah. I mean, the Vatican's a very mysterious place. And then what was it? The Library of Alexander that got burned down and supposedly had like so many old records. Yeah, I mean, there's definitely a chance that that's real.
That had to be like a intentional burn down, is my thought, really. You know.
Yeah, wasn't there a UFO over the Vatican? Like, there's
I've heard
stories
that, yeah.
about like there was.
Well, if you look at some of those old paintings and stuff, it looks like some type of device is flying, you know. And if there's the Book of Enoch, that's you know, that if you've never read that book of the Bible, like read that one and tell me that aliens aren't real. They describe this type of like alien being, and it's an eye with like a wheel within a wheel.
That's supposed to be an angel.
Yeah, right. Yeah. And so. But to me, it's the way that it's designed and it's described, it sounds like it's some type of like device that spins to create an anti-gravity field. You know, like almost like one of those, you remember those things you would like spin them and it was like a rotating in different directions, almost kind of like what is that device where like, I think it was Darwin like drew it where it's the guy out like this.
Yeah, that's like the circle.
Yeah.
The circle. I don't know what it's called, but I know what you're talking about.
It almost looks like that, you know. That book that I was talking about it's called Encounters by D.W. Paulsuka.
Send me that.
Yeah, it's a really good book. I highly recommend it. Well, man, we covered like a bunch of topics here. You know, we even got some aliens in here. So for you alien guys, listen to this podcast, you're going to enjoy it. I appreciate you coming out, man. We'll have to do this again sometime, and at some point we'll have this podcast big enough where we're doing like 2 or 3 guests at once. I think that would be a lot of fun. More like a hangout. Maybe we'll watch like some type of alien documentary and comment on it,
Yeah, that'd be really cool, man. I'm glad we finally got to do this.
Yeah, man. So, well, appreciate you guys tuning in. And this episode, make sure you like, subscribe on all platforms, and it'll be out soon. Thank you guys. Appreciate it.
And that's a wrap for today's Kings of Kimuras episode. Thanks for joining us on this epic journey. Remember to keep training, stay curious, and always be ready for the next adventure. Until next time, keep your guards up and your minds open.